The brevity.
I would like to ask questions.
All right.
And Sprinkel's answer is really helpful to the defense too, but there weren't records.
Good afternoon.
All right, we're going to get Steele. And if you're missing that, guys, the reason that's so important is they don't look at Diamante Kendrick's phone records. They don't look at them. They don't request the records. They don't analyze them. Bernie didn't talk about anything relating to Yak in relation to the Donovan Thomas murder. But yet they're claiming, they're charging Diamante Kendrick with the murder of Donovan Thomas. Why wouldn't they look? That was an incredibly great cross-examination. And look at Brian Steele's face ready to go. So here we go, you guys.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. How are you, sir?
I'm okay. How you doing, sir?
Very well, thank you.
I'll actually let you know if I'm okay. Can I ask you some questions?
Well, yes, please.
Thank you. So, I want to just go into a few different topics. The way this was set up in your office, and you specifically work in this case, I think you made it clear. I'm going to be very brief, but if I'm wrong, just say I got it wrong. Law enforcement officers with whomever, FBI, APD, GBI, whomever is working the case, eventually your office may get involved and summon, or they give to you their work product or their files on the case. Fair to say?
That's fair to say, yes.
And then what you're doing is, because you're a law enforcement, but you're the arm of the attorneys who come to court, you have to look at everything and prepare it or not prepare it for any type of charges.
That's right.
All right. And when I say charge, I mean formal charge. I know, ladies and gentlemen, know police can issue warrants, but warrants aren't an official charging document. That would be an accusation or a bill of indictment.
Yes.
When you got, and I'm focused only on this case, obviously, okay? When you get the file, you're getting the files from everybody who touched the case, as far as you could tell, from crime labs, from law enforcement, APD, GBI, whomever. I'm not eliminating, I'm not trying to keep out other agencies, but you try to get all those files together.
Well, yeah, I try to get all the documents or whatever media that every agency that investigated the case has. I mean, I want to get as much as possible.
Sure. Now, when you get the APD files, Atlanta Police Department files, and you start looking at them and reviewing them, I want to ask you if you can remember. Do you remember any notation from Detective Thorpe that he reviewed the McDonald's surveillance video from January 10th, evening January 10th, 2015, and he did that on or about January 11th or January 12th, 2015?
I don't, and I feel like I would remember that.
Tell the jurors why you remember that, if you don't mind.
Well, the McDonald's, as they've heard, was the McDonald's at Old Hayville and Cleveland Avenue.
151 Cleveland Avenue?
Yeah, I think that's the address. Whatever, it's at the intersection, at or near the intersection of yes, I believe that's the address. What you just said, and that was said to be a rendezvous point, the parking lot of which. So I would have remembered I would have remembered it because, first of all, I've never seen that video. I've never seen any surveillance video from McDonald's. So if I were to read something that said from a law enforcement officer said they did review it, I would have said, well, I would have remembered. That would have been a big thing for me. I would want to have had the video. So no, I don't recall any notations from Detective Thorpe about him reviewing the video and not obtaining it, presumably. So no, I don't remember anything like that.
Do you realize the masterfulness, is that a word, of what Steele just did? You got to know people, especially as a trial attorney, because you got to realize that people will answer the way that they will answer. Steele knows that Sprinkel will bolster himself. So Sprinkel, just let him talk. If you will, give us your whole cover letter, your resume, everything that makes you so great and thorough in your analysis, and let Michael Sprinkel talk about how there's absolutely no way that there would have been an inkling that Thorpe actually looked at any surveillance video or tried to go to the McDonald's and look at this video, or notated his conversations with Gaither to try to get this video, because Sprinkel would have sniffed it out. And he just let Sprinkel give this long, bolstery, I'm so good I looked at every single thing answer, because he reads people. This is great.
And if that video, if it's working and if it captures the area that this, what was your word, rendezvous? Is that what you just said?
I think so.
Okay. And the rendezvous, according to Mr. Copeland, let's say, it might be others, but at approximately 8 o'clock at night, January 10th, 2015, approximately. Mm-hmm. And you could correct me, if my times are off. If that surveillance at the McDonald's captured people actually meeting, then we would know who was actually there and if Mr. Copeland was being straightforward. Is that fair to say?
I'm going to object to speculation.
Sustained.
Did Detective Thorpe ever tell you, besides his file, did he tell you that he went out and looked at and saw or tried to see the video from the 10th day of January 2015, approximately 8 o'clock p.m. from the McDonald's?
Objection here, sir.
I covered this with Detective Thorpe, and I'm impeaching him.
Overruled.
I don't recall him telling me that. It doesn't mean that he didn't, but I just don't recall it. It just seems like something that would leave a mental impression on me, because again, I would have just thought, well, where's the
That's
video?
so
I
great.
don't have the video. I would have liked to know that. So I don't think he ever did.
In your experience since, I believe you said 2012, but it might have been 2009, with the DA's office in Fulton County, have you looked at and subpoenaed, whether or a grand jury, or excuse me, a court's search warrant, a surveillance video from stores?
I have, yeah.
Have you found that after a certain period of time, some of the video is erased or deleted?
Yes, that's the practice. The videos are all digital. I don't want to say they're all digital. There may still be people using tapes, but every video I've ever seen has been digital, and they only have so much room on the computer system that's storing the video, and eventually will start overwriting itself.
Explain, first of all, this includes 2015?
Yes.
Okay. Tell the jurors what you mean. I know you're comfortable with it, but overriding itself. Just explain that process from your experience, knowledge, and work with these.
Well, just like every computer surveillance system, cameras are hooked up to essentially a computer. The footage is recorded digitally and stored on a drive, some sort of media in the computer, but that drive can only store so much data, so many ones and zeros, I suppose. And so once the drive is full, the system is programmed to just, it's not like a tape where it starts in the beginning of the tape and starts overwriting it, but it starts writing data to the parts of the drive that already have data on it. And over time, the data just starts to rewrite itself. And eventually, after a certain amount of time, all traces of the footage from a certain date will eventually be gone, as they've been overwritten by data from other footage.
So just putting that make it simple, on a date. Have you seen a surveillance video that lasts 30 days?
I believe so. I don't want to throw out any names, but there's one place in particular that comes to mind, but it's not relevant here, and I also don't remember exactly, but I do believe that 30 days I have seen before.
Okay. What's a typical days until it starts overriding?
I'm going to just ask and answer the speculation element relates to McDonald's.
Riveting my case.
I'm impeaching Detective Thorpe.
I feel maybe 2 weeks. That's always what I kind of mark in my mind as if it's within 2 weeks of an event. I mean, you want to get the video as soon as possible, to be clear. But I really start losing hope after 2 weeks. But again, it depends on it could be a big retail outfit. Now going back to 2015, it may be a little different, and maybe they just have petabytes of storage for their video and it's stored off site. But your typical, like a gas station, particularly in 2015, where it was stored within, probably on a DVR, you're going to want to get that as soon as possible. You can start overwriting after 48 hours.
Okay. And when you say then it writes it over, so if I'm just using 2 weeks, okay? Mm-hmm. January 1, 2015, 2 weeks would go to approximately January 14, 2015.
Right.
on January 15th, 2015, does the entirety, in your experience and your dealing with this, does the entirety of everything in those 2 weeks go away, or is it on a rolling basis?
If you object, you asked and answered on
Not of this witness.
and speculation as to this witness.
He's asking within his experience, overruled.
Well, okay, so are we talking about one location and one, if we're talking about
He's gonna be
surveillance
so
footage, one location
specific.
and one computer system, we're talking about in the entire world of surveillance footage?
McDonald's, 2015, January 10th, surveillance, just typical McDonald's, your experience, hypothetically 2 weeks. I want to know on the 15th day, so I'm just after the 2 weeks, what you're explaining to the jury, does day 1, January 1 override, or the entirety from January 1 to 2014? That's my question.
Object to lack of foundation at this point.
Sustained.
In your experience with a 2-week camera, does it override just 1 day at a time? As the
An
next day
objective
comes in, the first
vague.
day's gone?
Vague as to your experience to a camera in a 2-week period. Any camera? I mean,
Sustained.
When you say override, tell the jurors what you meant by that.
asked and answered.
Sustained.
I don't believe he just
Yeah, he
used the
did.
word.
He explained it in detail.
All right. Did you or any of your members of your team, I'm including the prosecution team, you understand what I'm asking? Mm-hmm. So prosecution team are all law enforcement, GBI crime lab, your office, whomever, okay? FBI. Did you ever find out from any source that McDonald's, how long, if at all, they had that surveillance video?
The record retention period for surveillance video, if I knew it, I don't remember it now. So no, I can't answer. I don't know what their retention period was back then, nor do I know what it is now.
Did you ever hear from a detective, you know who Detective Gaither, Detective Dennis, they worked together, gang unit in 2015, January?
Yes, I know them.
Okay. Did they ever tell you or put in writing in any way that they went to the McDonald's in June 11, 2015 and inquired about the surveillance?
Objection hearsay.
I am impeaching Detective Gaither's testimony.
And who are you asking about at this point?
Detective Gaither, January 11th, 2015, going to McDonald's and inquiring about the video.
And that is hearsay, and it's not impeachment unless they specifically confronted
Sustained.
Detective
I
Gaither
did confront Detective
Gaither?
Gaither.
with
Yes.
telling
You're in here, Whitaker.
Mr. Sprinkel as to whether they got video surveillance footage or not.
I wanna know if
Was
it's
not
in-
the
I want to know if it's in the
Detective Gaither
records.
was not confronted with that.
Okay.
Yeah, she was the
Sustained.
first
I want to know
time.
if it's in the records.
No, this is a problem because she only remembers when Gaither came back.
That wouldn't be, then that would, rephrase your question. That question, the objection is sustained.
Do you have any information from any source that you looked at in your records, conversations that Detective Gaither and/or Detective Dennis went to the McDonald's on the day after interviewing Kenneth Copeland, June 11, 2015, and inquired about their surveillance equipment?
No, I have no notes that indicate that, and I have no memory of any conversations that I had with them where they told me that they did.
Did you ever obtain personally or have a member of your team, or it was done before you got involved, SkyHouse, you know, the condominium that Mr. Williams was living at in January 2015?
Yes.
Okay. Any surveillance from there?
No.
How about the Green Store? Any surveillance at the Green Store that Kenneth Copeland states that he was there, personally there, at and around the time of the killing of Donovan Thomas? Any surveillance from there?
No, no surveillance.
Did you or members of the prosecution team, I'm including all law enforcement, ever interview the people or persons that Kenneth Copeland said in June 10, 2015 that he was with at the Green Store at the time around Mr. Donovan Thomas's murder?
Well, there's a little Rick that he mentioned, if I remember correctly. No, I didn't, nor do I know if law enforcement did. No.
How many cell phones did Kenneth Copeland have access to that he can use on January 10, 2015?
All I know of is the one that I testified to.
And you do know that Kenneth Copeland testified in this court, and if you don't know, just say I don't know, that he had multiple cell phones.
I'm going to object at the rule of sequestration.
I mean, I would hope he doesn't know.
Okay.
Since he's a
Do you
witness in this case.
have knowledge that Mr. Copeland did not have 2 or more cell phones on January 10th, 2015 through your investigation?
Asked and answered. He just answered that question, that he only knew of the one cell phone.
Sustained.
Let me ask you this. Phone records that you talked about at length with the Honorable Mr. Body, through your analysis, and what you were given and subpoenaed more phone records, fair to say?
Yes.
All right. Those phone records give a general whereabout of where a handset is located, if it's working properly, if the records are accurate, I'm assuming all that, where a phone set would be in relation to its cell phone tower. Is that fair to say?
Right, just the area that the approximate area that the phone would be located based on the tower that it utilized.
And in your experience, if you know, and if you don't know, just say, I don't want to testify to this, that area could be how many
It
miles?
sound like a ninny.
How many feet, do you know? And we're talking about Atlanta, January 2015. And please, I'm not trying to put you out on a limb. I know you're under oath.
Well, I don't know that anybody could testify as to the exact square footage of the area, but it suffices to say it's not like GPS. It's a large area, probably, like over a mile.
Could be multiple miles.
Could be.
And jurors may not understand what you meant by it's not like GPS. Just explain that.
Well, like a point on a map. Like, in other words, when you get phone records, you don't have a log of the exact locations of a cellular device, like a pinpoint that you could put on the map that the phone was right here. Like, for example, I have a phone on me. If you were to get my phone records, it wouldn't show my phone sitting right here in the witness stand. It would show that it was using the tower next to the courthouse or near the courthouse, down the street, wherever, but it's not exactly.
Why is this so great? Because we get all this testimony. They're all together. They all hang out all the time at the gas station. Even from David Rogers' yesterday testimony and the Davis, the other guy. Like 8 and 10 of them at the Citgo or Texaco, Chevron, whatever it was. So they're grouped together all the time. They're close by in these cars, but you don't know the exact location. You don't know the exact dot where these cell phones are. It's not like when you're using a GPS and you can see your car following on the road. And Sprinkel is just so willing to completely lay it out.
Now, are you aware from your review of your records as you've been testifying and the recordings that Kenneth Copeland met with Detective Thorpe, Homicide Detective Thorpe, on the early morning hours of January 11, 2015?
Yes, I do recall Kenneth Copeland traveled to the precinct or arrived at the precinct and spoke with Detective Thorpe, yes.
And did you remember seeing that video? Did you ever watch that, and do you have a memory of that video encounter?
I believe so. It's been a while. I don't recall that video being all that important to me. I remember summarizing it, so I must have watched it, yes.
Do you remember Kenneth Copeland had a cell phone on the desk when he was speaking with Detective Thorpe?
That I don't remember. I'd have to take a look at the video.
Well, the jurors have seen it, so we're good. Do you remember Kenneth Copeland explaining that he knew that cell phones can give an area? On January 11, 2015,
Yep.
explaining to Detective Thorpe
knew.
that he was aware that check the cell phone records, check the cell phone, it'll show it's in this area. Do you remember him saying that?
I remember somebody saying that during the, I can't say that I remember if it was him, though.
All right. Let me ask you this. The cell phone records that we have here, unfortunately, don't give the actual communication. They might say handset of Kenneth Copeland, speaks with a handset of Nyesha Williams, but we don't know what's being said according to these records. Fair to say?
That's correct.
Now, with regards to Nyesha Williams, Nyisha Williams, typical
Yes.
spelling. Do you know that person?
I do not.
Okay. Do you remember seeking and obtaining and subpoenaing cellular telephone records for Nyesha Williams?
I do remember doing that.
And do you remember why you did that?
They appeared in there was a number that appeared in Kenneth Copeland's cell phone records that evening. And when I say that evening, I mean the evening of January 10th, 2015. And specifically, so I'm clear here, it was 404-621-0102. I'm looking at Kenneth Copeland's records to refresh my recollection. And because of the times that there were phone calls sent or transmitted and received by that number, I thought it was relevant. So I subpoenaed both the call logs and the subscriber information. The subscriber information was the name of Nyesha Williams.
And sometimes people can, and there's nothing wrong with it, people can use a cell phone that's not registered in their name for various reasons. Is that fair to say?
It's very fair to say. It happens all the time.
So a Nyesha Williams, I'm just using that name since we're using it, she could be on the Verizon call as a registered person, but she can freely give me her cell phone and I could use it all the time.
That's right.
But it would come back if somebody, like you subpoenaed it, it would look like it's Nyesha Williams' call. In the name doesn't mean she's using the phone.
That's right.
And you, through your research, took Kenneth Copeland's statements on June 10th, 2015, and when he said he called Mr. Garlington, you wanted to know what number Mr. Garlington was using then. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
And through your deduction, whether it's right or wrong, you said the Nyesha Williams registered phone might have been in the custody, control, and use of Demise and Garlington.
It's possible, but I do not know.
I'm not saying anyone knows, but that was your deduction.
That's right.
And that's why you then targeted the jail records for Nyesha Williams' registered phone, because you thought it may relate to Mr. Garlington.
Do you mean the cell phone records for her phone?
Did I say that?
I think you said jail records, but yes, I obtained the cell phone records for
I
her
said
phone.
jail record. I meant cell phone record.
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you obtained those records, you specifically did not request, you testified to this before, you specifically did not request historical cell site location data for Nyesha Williams' phone.
That's correct.
And what that means to the jurors who may know what it is, but if don't, that means you don't get the longitude and latitude of which tower that phone is employing at the time of the handset speaking with the cell tower, then it goes to switching station.
That's essentially right. You just get a log of incoming and outgoing calls, the times, the numbers, but the columns that tell you the location of the tower that was utilized, you don't get that. You need a search warrant for that.
Did you ever exclude the Nyesha Williams cell phone as a phone Mr. Garlington was using on the night of January 10, 2015?
Did I ever conclude that it was not his phone? Or the phone that he was using, rather?
I meant the phone is using.
No, I never definitively concluded that he was or was not using that phone.
And if, as you believed or hunched or were doing your work, Mr. Garlington was using that phone registered to Nyesha Williams, then you can track at least what calls were being made at what times. Is that fair to say?
Speculation on if it belongs to God, I would draw.
All right, go ahead. You can answer.
You mean I can at least see the phone,
Yes.
like the list of calls that were sent and received, text messages sent and received by the phone, the handset?
Yes.
Yes, I believe I obtained those records.
All right. Now, Mr. Copeland stated on June 10th, 2015, from the McDonald's, that he was in his car at some point, along with Mr. Garlington and along with Mr. McMullen, Demise McMullen, also known as Nard.
If I remember correctly, I think you said it was his brother Rontrez Brock's Dodge Charger, but yes, all three of them were at the McDonald's in that car, a car that he had possession of. Kenneth Copeland did, that is.
Okay. And Kenneth Copeland said that I'm not saying it's true, but Kenneth Copeland said on June 10th, 2015, he left the McDonald's. I'm using 8 o'clock. If if I'm wrong, just correct my time, but approximately 8 o'clock. He was driving the vehicle, the Charger, along with Mr. Garlington in the front passenger seat and Mr. McMullen or Nard in the rear driver's seat.
That sounds right, yeah. I don't recall what the exact seating arrangement was, but the occupants of the vehicle, that sounds correct.
And then he has that car, the Charger, going up, following another vehicle, a Nitro, white Nitro, to around Jeffery Williams' SkyHouse condo.
That's what he said.
And did you look, when analyzing the calls from Nyesha Williams, records rather, from Nyesha Williams, and realize that during that relevant period of time on the supposed drive from the McDonald's to the SkyHouse, the Nyesha Williams call that's potentially with Mr. Garlington and the Mr. McMullen calls, the number associated with Mr. McMullen, were in communication with each other?
Are you asking me, did Mr. McMullen and or the phone subscribed to by somebody named Nyesha Williams communicate?
At the relevant time of when supposedly Mr. Copeland is driving them together in the same car to the SkyHouse? Yes, that's my question.
I don't recall. I do recall Mr. McMullen was a very frequently contacted number within the Nyesha Williams phone records. I don't but I don't have, well, I do have Mr. McMullen. Let me see.
If you could check it, I'd appreciate it. And just tell the jurors whether at the time they're supposedly in the same exact car, these two phone numbers of the Nyesha Williams and the Mr. McMullen are communicating together according to phone records.
Okay, so we have, what?
State for the record, Mr. McMullen's exhibit, what exhibit number it is?
Can you use what exhibit you're using?
Is that an exhibit, or
It's already in evidence.
does he know what exhibit number it is?
Do you have an exhibit number? Are you looking at an actual?
I
No,
think he may, well, y'all can clarify it, but
Sprinkel probably already knows.
is there an exhibit number on what you're looking at?
No, I just brought
No,
the phone, I printed them out and brought them to court.
This
so
is, what is it that you're looking at?
the phone records for 470-217-6080, Demise McMullen.
Okay, does anybody know what exhibit number that is?
Yes, 464Y.
Thank you.
Mr. Steele requested it during my direct.
Okay.
I didn't want it during his cross as well.
Okay, so what I see here is at 7:59 PM on January 10th, 2015.
Just do me a favor, because you're looking down. Can you just go a little slower?
Yes, yes. What I see.
Actually, let me stop. How much longer is your examination of this witness going to be?
45 minutes?
All right, let's stop and break for lunch.
To an
5
hour and a
minutes.
half, because I don't want you to.
Get the math wrong. Oh my gosh.
All right, I'll see y'all back at, let's be back at 1:45.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Sprinkel.
Good afternoon.
I think we were at a point where you were about to testify, I believe, obviously, tell me I'm wrong, that at 7:59 PM, according to the phone records, Nyesha Williams' associated phone, who may be Mr. Garlington's phone, handset that he had, connected to Mr. McMullen or Nard. And just if I'm wrong, I didn't mean to be wrong, just correct it.
Yes, so I see that actually, there's a call at 7:53 PM.
And just to make sure we're oriented, this is all Eastern Standard Time, and we're talking about January 10th, 2015.
Yes,
All right.
Eastern Standard Time, January 10, 2015. So I see a call from the handset associated with Demise McMullen to the handset associated with a subscriber named Nyesha Williams at 7:53 PM. I then see that at 7:59 PM, and I believe that's where we left off, that the handset associated with Nyesha Williams calls the handset associated with Demise McMullen. And again, that's at 7:59. And then at And then I don't see another call between those two handsets, at least of the variant that would appear in phone records, until 11:01, when Nyesha Williams, or when looks like Demise, the handset associated with Demise McMullen calls Nyesha Williams, the handset.
Now, from your view, the reason we even got Nyesha Williams is because Kenneth Copeland gave a statement on June 10, 2015, articulating that he made calls at a certain time to the handset of Mr. Garlington. And you deducted potentially that that would coincide with Nyesha Williams' handset.
Yes, I thought that was a possibility. But like I said before, he also said that he called Mr. Garlington on FaceTime. Now, he didn't specify if all the calls were FaceTime calls. Some were voice calls that would show up on cell phone records. But apparently there were multiple ways that, according to Mr. Copeland anyway, that he would have contacted Mr. Garlington. So I surmised that based on the time of the calls, that perhaps this 404-621-0102 number that was subscribed to by somebody named Nyesha Williams may have been Garlington. But again, I don't know.
I understand. And I appreciate you telling and educating the jurors. Now, Mr. Copeland said around the 8 o'clock time, so 7:53, 7:59, I'm including that time, that he was in a car with Mr. Garlington and Mr. McMullen, also known as Nard.
So I don't recall Mr. Copeland pinpointing the exact times that any of these things happened. We may just have to deduce it based on everything else in the case. So to be exact, I don't know that he ever said, I was in a car with these people at this exact time.
Let me do it a little differently then. From the McDonald's going to the SkyHouse, he had traveling with him Mr. Garlington and Mr. Demise McMullen, also known as Nard.
Yes.
According to Mr. Copeland. Mm-hmm. Okay. But you have the handsets of Nyesha Williams and the handset of Demise McMullen, also known as Nard, contacting one another around the times that this Mr. Copeland's car would be traveling from the McDonald's to the SkyHouse, if he's true.
That is correct.
All right. Do you know of a reason that people would call one handset to another handset in the same car?
Objection, calls for speculation.
Sustained.
All right. Let's
Question
go
was
to
heard.
Mr. Copeland's claim on June 10, 2015, that he traveled with his phone that we have, that he says he had with him, from the McDonald's to Jeffery Williams' SkyHouse condominium on January 10, 2015, approximately. I'm using the 8 o'clock time. I understand 7:53, whatever, but around that time. Do you have any phone records to show on Mr. Copeland's phone that he says he had with him that he was ever using a tower near the SkyHouse of Jeffery Williams after leaving the cell tower of the McDonald's on the evening of January 10, 2015?
From what I remember, he did use a tower near the SkyHouse at 11:14 p.m. that evening. But that's what I recall. I mean, obviously the records are in evidence, but yeah, 11:14, short answer.
Okay. But according to Mr. Copeland, he's leaving the McDonald's and driving to the Jeffery Williams condominium located at the SkyHouse on the exact date and time that we're talking about, and he went directly there.
I don't know. That's what I recall. He did say, I don't know if he said we went directly there, or if he just omitted that they made pit stops along the way, but my recollection was that, the short answer to your question is, I don't know if he said they went directly there or not, or if that's what he meant to say, but yes, the phone didn't travel from the McDonald's directly to the SkyHouse.
Okay. And Mr. Copeland also told law enforcement on June 10, 2015, that from the McDonald's at the appropriate time that we're talking about and date we're talking about, on the way to the SkyHouse, he followed the vehicle that contained Jeffery Williams and Mr. Kelvin Treadwell and others. Do you remember that?
I
Did
do.
not make the same
All right. And
pit stops.
Kevin Treadwell's nickname would be OG Bentley. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's right.
All right. Understanding Mr. Kelvin Treadwell's phone records, does Mr. Treadwell's phone records indicate that he is at or near a tower by Jeffery Williams' SkyHouse condominium on June 10, 2015, after being down by the McDonald's area.
Do you mean January 10th, 2015?
What did I say?
June 10th.
No, no, I'm sorry. Yes, you are correct.
Okay, I do not, I'm referring to my report to refresh my recollection, but I don't recall seeing that Mr. Treadwell's handset pinged off a tower near the SkyHouse condominiums.
Shout out to Rice Street
All right.
dropping 20 gifted
Do you have
memberships.
any, if you're looking to, I'll wait for you, I apologize.
All right, yeah, I'm done.
You stand by your answer?
I stand by my answer.
Okay. Do you have any physical evidence, eyewitness, surveillance video that Mr. Treadwell, Kelvin Treadwell, actually had the killing weapon or the other weapons that were used at the time of the shooting of Donovan Thomas and the other two people, as stated by Mr. Kenneth Copeland on June 10, 2015?
The speculation and elements, how the witness would know.
Uh-oh.
All records.
Uh-oh.
With guns.
Anything, Your Honor, please.
Okay, well, he's making a whole lot of objections, so overruled as to relevance, and he's not limited to the phone records, so overruled on that. And what was the other one?
Background evidence,
Evidence.
Sustained.
On
There's
which
been
one?
10, okay. Do you remember Mr. Copeland stating that Mr. Treadwell had, or O.G. Bentley, also known as O.G. Bentley, had guns that were used in the shooting of Donovan Thomas and the other two people in his car given to him and around the McDonald's 2010 that we're talking about?
Yes, he said that.
Do you have any physical evidence, surveillance evidence, anything to corroborate that those guns were actually in that car at any time or given to Mr. Treadwell?
No.
All right. Now, I want to ask you to educate the jurors if you are aware of what a geofence is. If you're not aware, just say, I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm
gonna
aware
tell
of what
us.
geofence is.
In detail.
I'm aware of what a geofence, if we're talking about the variant that Google produces, yes.
If you can you explain to the jurors what is a geofence and how it works and how you use it in your everyday or whenever it's needed in your duties as a district attorney working with law enforcement?
Okay, so basically, Google has compiled over the years the general locations of Wi-Fi signals, and there's a variety of means that they've done this, but it suffices to say that Google has a database that has a set of points that define roughly, or maybe exactly, the boundaries of Wi-Fi signals, maybe cell phone. I mean, this is, I don't work for Google, but this is what I've come to understand. And that based on this, Google, if you have an Android device in particular, with location services turned on, Google can approximate your location because while you may not be connected to a certain Wi-Fi network, your phone can nevertheless see the Wi-Fi network. So if your phone can see a Wi-Fi network, and Google, because like I said, they know where the Wi-Fi networks are generally, then Google has a pretty good idea where your phone might be at a certain time.
In this case, if you know, was a Google Fence analysis and search warrant taken out for the phone, targeting the phone of Jeffery Williams that he had on him on the 10th day of January 2015?
No, no, there was no geofence warrant done for Mr. Williams' phone that I know of.
Let me ask you just to refresh your memory, if it does, refresh your memory.
I know there was a geofence warrant done, but a warrant specific to Mr. Williams' phone, I don't recall that. But if you have something to refresh my memory, maybe that will help.
What number do you have for Jeffery Williams' cell phone, January 10, 2015, if you don't mind?
Well, there's one that ends in 3904 and one that ends in 9596.
Let me show you, just for purposes of seeing if this refreshes your memory. If it doesn't, tell me. John, may I approach?
You may.
I'm showing you a document. Do not, may I approach you?
Yes.
Just do me a favor, peek at it. Just tell me if you've seen it before, and if you were involved in it, and if it refreshes your memory, and if it doesn't, tell me that as well. And on the second page, second to last paragraph, you should see that phone number you just articulated.
I have not seen this. I was aware that I know who this investigator is. I was vaguely aware he was working on things like this, but this was not a search warrant that I drafted.
All right. You weren't involved in that part of this investigation?
I recall looking at a warrant that he did for a geofence, but that's not what this is. I know. I don't know. I see what maybe he was trying to do, but I don't recall ever seeing that
All
warrant.
right. Your Honor, may I retrieve the document?
You may.
I will not ask you about this then, okay?
Okay.
All right. Let me ask you this. Are you aware, in your involvement in this case, whether you, your office, your prosecution team, the whole group, ever tracked the cell phone associated with Kelvin Watts, also known as, do you remember his?
I do remember. I know who Calvin was.
Shell, same person?
Yeah, I know who he is. Yes.
Okay. Tracking his cell phone historic data related to these shootings in 2015.
Well, for Mr. Watts, the one case that I recall was a shooting of a fatal shooting of a young lady named Tiara Jones. We did have phone tower logs, and that would have been September 2015, but that's the only case I remember.
Did you or your coworkers, the prosecution team, ever analyze the cell phone historic data records for Kenneth Copeland's phone from these shootings in 2014 through 2015?
Well, apart from what we're talking about right here, January 10th, 2015, I don't recall now.
All right. Do you remember on phone records, getting phone records or viewing phone records of a young lady named Alexis Greer, also known either as Max, also known as Dolly? Do you know who I'm talking about?
I do.
All right. And through your investigation, your belief, if you don't know, just say Jeffery Williams' sister,
Yes.
older sister?
That was my understanding, yes.
All right. Do you remember that at 12:04 a.m. on the 11th day of January 2015, the handset or cell phone associated with Alexis Greer, Max, Dolly Greer, same person, called 911?
I don't recall that. If I ordered her phone records, if it's in there, I'm sure it's true, but I don't remember that specific 911 call. I don't remember that.
All right. Well, let me ask you a different question then. Did you ever get, or the prosecution teams, I'm including everybody, did you, to your knowledge, ever obtain the actual 911 call from a handset associated with Alexis Greer, the actual words?
No, I don't recall anything about this 911 call, so I can't imagine that we obtained it unless this has completely slipped my mind, but no, I don't remember that.
Let me just show you something, see if it refreshes your memory. If it doesn't, just say it does not help, okay?
Okay.
Your Honor, may I approach
You
this for a
may.
minute? It's going to be behind you, Mrs. Sprinkel. I'm going to walk right behind you, okay? Your Honor, may I, it's already used as a demonstrative, may I publish?
You may.
For one moment. Mr. Sprinkel, I'm just going to hold this up if that's okay with you. Okay. And if I block you or anything, just let me know. Do you see on here, can you read that exhibit number on for me?
It's exhibit 533YF.
Show that to the jury lady, Your Honor. And I am looking on here specifically at the fourth line there. Do you see that 911 says 104 seconds?
I do, I see that.
And do you see the 1990?
I do.
Do you know if that corresponds to Dolly Greer? I can help you with that too.
Yeah, I might need my memory refreshed. I don't recall.
It's right here. I'm just going to pull this back. It's on this one.
Okay, I see it there.
Can you just do me a favor since I'm showing it to you? Can you read the exhibit number?
It is 533Y, looks like A,
Okay. And who's the 1990 number associated with?
Dolly Greer.
All right. My question then, does this in any way help you to remember whether you, let me go, let me yell at you. Does that help you with whether you or your coworkers ever had possession of that 911 call? The actual, I'm talking about, this is 911 and here's a recording.
Right, I don't recall that.
How long a 911 call is kept by APD?
If
you know.
1 year is what I've always, unless that retention period has changed, 1 year is what I've always known them to keep them.
Okay. I want to ask you, you were asked by the Honorable Mr. Body a couple of questions about listening to or being present at, actually, interviews of Mr. Zachary, also known as Little D.
That's correct.
All right, and there's two Little Ds. Earlier, I was saying Mr. Garlington, he's also Little D. Fair to say?
That's correct.
All right, I'm now talking about Mr. Zachary,
Yes.
also known as another Little D. All right. You were present at the April 13, 2017 recorded interview with Mr. Zachary. Fair to say?
Yes, I was there.
And you were there with other law enforcement, including Detective Thorpe, Detective Dennis, Detective Gaither. I believe if I'm leaving someone out, I'm not trying to.
Yes, that's correct.
You were not present for the August 5, 2015 interview with Mr. Zachary, but you've referenced it today with Mr. Body and you've reviewed that. Fair to say?
That's right.
That's also audio video. Fair?
That's correct.
In the August 5th, 2015 interview that you recorded, that you reviewed, that was recorded that you reviewed, did Mr. Zachary make it clear that Mr. Williams did not know about the killing of Donovan Thomas till afterwards?
From what I remember, yes, he did talk. Yes, the short answer to your question is yes.
In the April 13, 2017 interview with Mr. Zachary, did he say something similar?
I don't recall how much detail we went into him on that, but yes, from what I remember, he said the same thing. He at no point implicated Mr. Williams.
I'm going to ask you the same exact questions, same dates. We'll take them one at a time if it's okay with you. Start with the August 5, 2015 recording that you reviewed first. The tour bus shooting of a gentleman, phenomenal artist, Dwayne Carter, also known as Lil Wayne. You know who I'm talking about?
I do.
All right, that's April 26, 2015 date, the shooting of the tour bus?
Oh, yes, yeah, April 2015. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And is it fair to say that Mr. Zachary, at the August 5th, 2015 interview, you were not present for it, but you reviewed, said that Mr. Williams had no involvement in that whatsoever, and Lil Wayne, Jeffery Williams idolizes Lil Wayne?
I don't remember, since I wasn't working on that case, but so I don't remember exactly what he said, but I do remember him mentioning it, and he did not mention that Mr. Williams was involved.
Same question for you, August, or April 13, 2017. If it came up, tell the ladies and gentlemen, jury, Mr. Zachary again stated Mr. Williams was not involved in the shooting bus of that tour bus.
That I don't recall it coming up during that interview.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Do you remember Mr. Zachary stating that Mr. Copeland was responsible for shooting TIG? Do you know what TIG Studios is? You know what I'm talking about?
Metropolitan Parkway?
Yeah, 675? Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you remember Mr. Zachary explaining that Mr. Copeland fired bullets into that establishment?
Objection, Your Honor, that's not something we use.
Okay, I need you to speak up a little bit.
Objection, facts not in evidence.
It's in the recording that was played for the jury, that was reviewed by Mr. Sprinkel, and Mr. Abadi asked Mr. Sprinkel about that same interview.
It's not my recollection of how.
Sustained.
Yeah.
Do you recall Mr. Zachary stating that Mr. Copeland and Tay, do you know who Tay is? Tay, T-A-Y? I'm spelling T-A-Y.
Which Tay?
Threat.
No, I don't recall this.
You don't remember?
I do not remember this.
So you
Do you
didn't
remember Mr.
investigate
Zachary
Tremont
stating
Turner
that
at
Mr.
all?
Copeland and another person were responsible for shooting Rich Homie Kwan's father at the barbershop? Different barbershop, not the January 10, 2015.
No, I don't remember that.
Okay. All right, let's talk about
Did they not give that to Sprinkle?
all the work that you talked about here and your studies, and I'm not mentioning everything, but your interviews, reviewing interviews, cell phone plotting, videos, all your work, okay? Then, in some point, do you remember the date in 2018 you interviewed Mr. Kelvin Treadwell, O.G. Bentley? Do you remember that?
Which day was this again?
2018.
Oh, right. Yes, I do remember that. Yes. That was another matter, but yeah, I do remember it.
And do you remember stating that you can't understand why people think that Thug, I call him Jeffrey, had something to do with the killing of Nut, I call him Mr. Thomas? That doesn't make sense? That's a thing that always confused me about this case, because all these rumors started immediately that Young Thug had something to do with it. But yeah, then Young Thug put a picture of him on Instagram, Mr. Thomas. So I'm looking at these people saying, oh, you and Little Woody had something to do with it. The more investigated the case, the more I've investigated the case, I just don't, near as I could tell, Young Thug and Birdman were friends with Mr. Thomas or Nut, so I don't know why people say that he was involved.
Well, I recorded the interview, so I'm assuming that's a verbatim quote. I don't have everything I said during that interview memorized, but I'm assuming that, like I said, since you're reading from a transcript, that, yeah, I said that.
Okay. All right. the jurors may not, they're getting insight now into how jail phones work, jail recordings work, things like that. But I'd like you to explain to him, if you know, people who visit people at the jail, 2015, okay? If you know, can you yourself, you're a lawyer, can you actually physically go into the jail, you know, with permission, everything's lawful, it's ethical, I'm not suggesting anything, and actually get up on a floor and meet with someone who, God forbid's, in custody? Have you done that before?
At the Fulton County Jail?
Fulton County Jail, thank you.
No, I've never done it. Now, I don't have clients, I'm not a defense attorney, so, but I can tell you as a prosecutor, I've met with people at the jail, but it's never been in the pods. It's in the library.
Sure. That's what I'm saying. Just get access to the jail and meet with a human being who's, God forbid, incarcerated. You've done that before?
I've done that before.
Do you know whether the jail in 2015 now had surveillance for people walking in and out of the jail? I'm talking about the common area, walking in and out of jail, if you know.
I do not know because I've never, or I don't recall ever seeing footage, not on this matter or any other matter from that area. It would seem logical that they would, but I can't say that I have personal knowledge that they did.
How about when a person, we could use you, so your personal knowledge, in 2015, if this happened to you, going into the Fulton County Jail to see somebody, to see somebody in custody, have to sign in any paperwork, show your ID?
Yes, that you have to do.
All right. And to your knowledge, is that saved by law enforcement?
Who's
The
visiting
jail.
who?
From what I remember, it was the sort of paper that it would create it was like a carbon paper, the kind of paper that it would make a copy of it when you write on it. So they'd give you a copy and then they retain the copy with the impression left from the original. Now, as to what their record-keeping practices are at the Fulton County Sheriff's Office, that I don't know. All I know is they had it set up so they would keep a copy. I can say that, but I don't know what their record retention was after that.
And for people who may not know, who's in charge of, who is constitutionally in charge of running the Fulton County Jail?
I'm going to object to relevance at this point.
Sustained?
All right. Your Honor, may I have just a moment?
Sure.
Do you know whether the sheriff officials ever log? Do you know what Odyssey is?
I do.
Just tell jurors what Odyssey is.
It's a database. It's just a piece of software made by a company called Tyler Technologies. I believe they're out of Texas. And it's used here by the staff in the Fulton County Justice System, staff at the DA's office, the courts, and the jail. And it's basically just all of the data. All the cases in the system are maintained in this Odyssey database. The DA's office keeps their records, part of their records anyway, in the Odyssey database, and the jail keeps their records in this database.
Does the jail on Odyssey, you can access that?
I'm going to object to relevance again.
Sustained, as far as I can tell.
Okay. People visiting people in the jail, is that also on Odyssey?
Yeah.
I'm going to object to relevance.
It'll come up with the witness in the future.
All right, I'll give you some latitude.
So yes, there is in what's called the jail module, when you click on a book-in number, there will be a tab called contacts, and I've seen entries made. Now, reason why I'm going to hesitate a little bit here is, and I can't remember exactly when, but I from what I remember, there have been times when I knew a visit was made and it didn't get logged. Because everything in Odyssey has to be entered by a human. Well, maybe not everything, but something like contacts would have to be entered by a human. So the data is only as good as the people are tasked with entering it. So yes, I can tell you this. There is in the jail module that the sheriff's office maintains, there is an area for them to enter data regarding the date and time of a contact and who came to contact that person. But I don't know that every single contact they're diligent about logging every single one, or if there are variants of contacts that they don't log. have to ask somebody from the sheriff's office about that.
Mr. Sprinkle, as always, thank you so much. Your Honor, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
All right, are there other defense
right, end
counsel
of
with
cross.
questions for this witness?
Redirects, maybe?
Is there redirect? Oh, you do?